I now call this meeting of Peoria Public Schools Board of Education to order. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Wilson? Here. Dr. Davidson? Here. Ms. Johnson? Here. Ms. Jackson? Mrs. Ross? Here. Mrs. Jackson? Here. Mr. Walter?
Here.
Mr. Shaw?
Here.
Mr. Adams?
Here. Would you please join me in the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This evening, before we move on to our regularly scheduled agenda, I wanted to pause for a moment and recognize a strong community advocate and a former school board member and president that we lost this past week, Miss Alicia Butler. Our own Dr. Davison Aviles knew her very well, and we'll say a few words in recognition of her service to this community.
Thank you, Mr. Adler. Alicia Butler was a friend, a neighbor, and a colleague. She was passionate about our neighborhood, participating in its governance, volunteering when it came time to hang the greens, and watching out for her neighbors, which is something that's in the DNA of the Moss Bradley neighborhood. Alicia was compassionate and supportive. I remember a time when she cared for a lost dog until its owner was found. And she was renowned for spoiling her own 2 dogs. And then in her spare time, if she could find it, she'd mentor young women in her sorority at Bradley University. And if you knew Alicia, you knew she loved her mother. She cared for her, loved her so much that she'd drag her out in the cold to all those high school football games. But mostly, she was passionate about Peoria Public Schools and our students and families. She poured all her energy into the board, and when she was interacting with students and teachers, she was at her best. Alicia Butler had grit, and she left us with an important legacy. Protect the things that are important, whether they be people, pets, or perhaps most especially ideas. And finally, I did know Alicia for a lot of years. She lived right behind me. Finally, here's what I think Alicia believed. And I'm going to borrow a couple of lines from the movie The American President. Alicia might have thought, education is hard, and you got to want it bad. Alicia showed us education is advanced citizenship, and it needs you to be interested, be active, and be engaged.
Thank you. Welcome other board members to make comments on behalf of Ms. Butler. Mr. Walter.
Thank you. Not quite as eloquent as my friend Dr. Bob, but Alicia was a friend also, and her passion for Peoria Public Schools I don't think knew any bounds. She was truly an advocate for this school district, had been for a long time. She showed her commitment both when she was on and off the board, her support for, as Dr. Bob said, her mother, Peoria High, Bradley, and her sorority. But with all those items, she really put those ahead of herself, and unfortunately that came back to haunt her. But she was truly a friend of mine and a friend of this district, and she will be missed.
Thank you. Mrs. Jackson.
I think we'll all miss Alicia. Got to know Alicia on a whole different level because we laughed and talked about different things and even funny things, other than education when we got outside. I will miss her because I'll miss her smile and the discussions we had as we were coming up. But the thing that struck me about Alicia more than anything else is how she took care of her mother. I think that is one of the most wonderful things that all of us can even think about, is how she took care of her mother. And you're right, she drove her out to everything.
I know.
Because she never wanted to leave her alone. And I think if anything that brings to my mind is just her commitment to her mom. So I hope and pray that her mother can get through this, because that's hard. You expect to bury your mother, but mothers don't expect to bury their children. So we just hope and pray that her mother gets through this.
Thank you. So we just ask the public to keep Ms. Butler's family in your thoughts. And Dr. Pratt, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I actually was completely shocked when I got the message. I actually spoke to Alicia about 10 days ago. She called me, and I'm sort of responsible for her dragging her mom out to the games, because every year for the past 3 years I gave them passes to all of the Big 12 games, so that she could get in and get into a nice area that was accessible, handicap accessible. So when she called, I got the tickets. I asked Tracy to please put 2 tickets in an envelope at the front desk. Alicia said she would pick them up. So this morning I asked Tracy to check and see if the tickets were picked up, and the tickets were still there. So at that time she was probably still ill and didn't get a chance to come by and pick up the tickets. So I still have the envelope with the 2 tickets with her name on it. May her soul rest in peace. She had a great heart.
Indeed. All right. We'll then move on to the approval of our minutes. Can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the August 13th, 2018 and August 27th, 2018 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on our minutes from those meetings? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Dr. Davidson Aviles?
Aye.
Mr. Ross? Mrs. Ross? Mrs. Jackson? Aye. Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is announcements. Do any board members have announcements they wish to make?
I have one.
Mr. Wilson was first.
Glen Oak Community Learning Center, Tree Wind School, and Manual Academy will begin offering the 21st Century Community Learning Center after-school program beginning September 17th. The program is designed to improve student achievement and social development. The Monday through Thursday 3-hour after-school program will be offered at Glen Oak Community Learning Center for grades for 3rd through 8th, Manual Academy for grades 7th through 12th, and at Tree Wind School for grades 2nd and 6th, 2nd through 6th. Transportation will be provided. The program is limited to students who attend those schools. 21st Century Community Learning Center is funded by a grant from the After School Alliance.
Mr. Walter.
Classroom grant deadlines. The Peoria Public Schools Foundation Classroom Grant and Field Trip Grant Application deadline is October 1st. Applications are available on the Peoria Public Schools Foundation website. Each year, the foundation funds approximately $20,000 in innovative and creative classroom projects for Peoria public school teachers. Applications for the PNC classroom grants are also due on October 1st. For information, contact jenna.weisner@pnc.com.
Thank you. Mrs. Jackson.
Applications for the International Baccalaureate or IB Diploma Program at Richwoods High School are available online at www.peoriapublicschools.org/Richwoods. Click on the Academies tab. Middle school counselors will have hard copies available on Friday, September 14th. IB is a challenging, rigorous course of study. Freshmen and sophomores who are accepted enroll as pre-IB students and officially begin the diploma program their junior year. The IB diploma is internationally recognized and prepares students for the most demanding colleges and university.
Thank you. Mrs. Ross.
Peoria University at Tanner's Orchard. Celebrate Autumn on Thursday, September 27th from 5 to 8 p.m. when Parent University features a favorite family outing, Tanner's Orchard. The evening will feature free dinner, a wagon ride, a tour of the Tanner's packing shed, playtime in the back 40 fun acres, and face painting. Shuttle buses will depart Manual, Academy, Peoria High, and Woodruff Career and Technical Center at 4:30 p.m., 4:45 p.m., and 5 o'clock p.m. And at Richwoods from 4:45 p.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. Space on the wagon rides is limited. Families wishing to participate in the wagon ride should catch the 4:30 p.m. or 4:45 p.m. shuttle bus. If driving to Tanner's, be there by 5 p.m. Reservations are required. Go to www.peoriapublicschools.org/RSVP.
Thank you. Other announcements? Ms. Johnson.
PSA auditions for 8th grade students. Middle school counselors will soon receive information for 8th grade students on the audition process for the Preparatory School for the Arts at Peoria High School. The Preparatory School for the Arts features a college prep curriculum with in-depth emphasis on drama, dance, orchestra, band, vocal, and visual arts. Auditions for all Peoria Public School 8th grade students will be held in November. Parents with questions about the PSA or the audition process should contact their students' counselors.
Thank you. Dr. Bob.
Feria de Trabajo, Job Fair. Estén invitados a ser miembros de nuestro notable equipo. Peoria Public Schools acogerá una feria de trabajo educativo el jueves, el 27 de septiembre, desde las 11 de la mañana hasta las 3 de la tarde en el edificio de administración. Entrevistas serán conducidas para maestros certificados, graduados de mayo, ayudantes de maestros, maestros suplentes y conductores de autobús. Traigo un currículum y cartas de recomendación. Maestros certificados deben traer ejemplos de planes de lecciones. Job Fair, you are invited to become a member of our remarkable team. Peoria Public Schools will host an education job fair Thursday, September 27th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Administration Building. On-site screening and interviews will be conducted for certified teachers and May graduates pending certification, teacher aides, substitute teachers, and bus drivers. Applicants should bring a resume, transcripts, and letters of recommendation. Certified teachers should also bring a sample lesson plan.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw.
Making the grade conference plan. The first grading period progress report will be sent to parents on Friday, September 21st. The Making the Grade conference plan, which was piloted at Lincoln K-8 last year, is expanding to Sterling Middle School, Glen Oak Community Learning Center, Harrison Community Learning Center, Roosevelt Magnet School, and Treewind School this year. Through this program, 6th grade students will meet with volunteer members twice during the school year to review their progress report, review the students' academic goals, and offer advice and encouragement on how the student can be a successful scholar. After a short training session, volunteer members meet individually with their assigned student for approximately 10 to 15 minutes. If you're interested in becoming a volunteer mentor, please call the Peoria Public Schools Foundation at 309-713-3608 or email sarah.oakford@psd150.org.
Thank you. Just a little bit of a heads up for the public in terms of our upcoming meeting dates. We will consider at our next board meeting making a slight adjustment to our first October meeting. When we set our calendar earlier this year, we scheduled it for Tuesday, October 9th. And this was with the expectation that we would be closed for Columbus Day as a district. However, later in the year, we did update our school calendar, and we're no longer closed on Columbus Day. So we will consider moving our meeting back to that regular Monday night time. So pending board approval next week, we'll do our usual bit of distributing the update of meeting notices to media and other outlets. All right, next on our agenda is a community contribution. Tonight we have the, shut myself off. Tonight we have the pleasure of honoring an outstanding Adopt-a-School partner with our Community Contribution Award. St. Paul Baptist Church members work tirelessly for our students at Von Steuben Middle School, and they take that commitment to the school so seriously that the church leaders even visited the school during a lunch period to ask students what they wanted from their community. That video was shared with church members, giving them solid ideas on how best to help the students and the school. So I'd like to invite Von Steuben Principal Tom Ryan to come to the podium and tell us a bit more about the great work that St. Paul the Baptist Church members are doing for the school.
Thank you very much. When I first came in, Dr. Bell asked me if I was nervous, but with my team behind me, I'm never nervous. We work together as a good unit, and we're reaching out, building our community partnership with More and More. Last year, some members of the St. Paul Church came to us and asked, what can we do? And they started just kind of mingling with the students at lunchtime, getting to know them, having some short conversations, being an adult presence. And we had 2 gentlemen go into the classroom as well. This year we're going to expand that, and we've got about 10 or 12 that are very interested in coming into the classroom and helping out pretty much where it counts. Not that you don't learn anything in the cafeteria, but the classrooms where the rubber hits the road. So we're growing the program, we're growing the partnership. We're extremely excited about getting more individuals in the classroom to help out and share their knowledge. Mr. Hayes couldn't be here tonight. He had an extremely important softball engagement. But he's been our kind of point of contact, and he's taken things back and run it through the church members, and he's lit the fire. So I really wanted to mention his name tonight with what he has done to get things going. So we're extremely excited about having them, and I know they have a little something for us this year to help grow some of our SEL. Hopefully we can use that piece to make school even better than what the direction we're going now.
Thank you. Do members of the St. Paul Baptist Church want to come forward and talk a little bit about what you're doing and what you're sharing with the school here tonight?
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity to stand before you. It's been a joy for us to partner with Von Steuben Middle School. Again, Sean Hayes has been our leader on behalf of our church community. We've gotten a chance to meet a number of the teachers, to work with a number of the students, hear some of the needs within the life of the school and the community. And on behalf of the church, we wanted to make a donation to support the efforts of the school and what they're doing with the students to try to help make things a little bit easier. So we wanted to present to the Von Steuben School and Mr. Ryan a check for $5,000 to support them in their
Thank you, Pastor Hubbard, and on behalf of the Board of Education, Dr. Cried has a small token of our appreciation. Thank you very much for the work that you do with us.
Yeah, we're proud of him. We went to school together at Bradley, actually. So you can see young pastor with just an amazing congregation, and I wanted to thank you so much for not only the work that you're doing at Peoria Public Schools and specifically Von Steuben and the amazing staff, but all of the other things I know you're involved with. You're involved with the line in Peoria, and you do a lot of other things for us. So thank you, sir, and you understand the why in terms of making sure that kids have productive and prosperous lives, and that's what it's all about. So thank you. And he can sing also.
That's a great partnership, and we appreciate not only our community organizations, but how our staff make it easy to work with our students in our classrooms. So, thank you all. Next, we actually continuing the tradition of recognizing our own staff as well with tonight's Remarkable Spirit Award. This evening's award goes to Alex Romero. As the daytime custodian here in the administration building, Alex is one of the first people through the door every morning. He takes pride in his work, from coordinating repairs and mowing grass on hot summer days to moving heavy furniture and preparing conference rooms for meetings. No matter how difficult or seemingly thankless the task may be, and many of those come from board members, Alex goes above and beyond to get it done, and always with a positive attitude. So at this time, I'd like to ask Alex's supervisor, Carla Heeman, to step up to the podium and say a few words about Alex.
Got my written speech here because I didn't want to leave anything out. You can't train someone to have passion, Dave Kenny once told me. Either a person has passion or they don't. From day one, Alex displayed passion for his job, but he lacked trust. Without trust, I've learned supervisor-employee relationships just don't work. We built that trust over the next few weeks after he was hired, and a new person emerged. We've experienced a lot together over the past couple of years. What follows are some things that stand out. Cleaning out the legal room, which was stacked to the ceiling with boxes and files, and Alex couldn't be left alone because it was sensitive documents, and so some was for the trash, and some needed to be shredded, and some needed to go to the curriculum department. We'd have to tackle it together, and Alex learned how much a person can accomplish over a few weeks, spending just 15 minutes together a day on a task. I learned about his penchant for saving stuff, good stuff. He just knew we could find a home for all the treasures. We laughed a lot because I am known in the administration building as somebody who keeps a little bit too much stuff. And now I'd finally met my match. There was the idea that I had a small section of tile in a huge hallway, and it was just kind of yellow and not perfect, and I said, gosh, if we could just sort of strip that little area down and then just kind of re-wax it, that would be perfect. And Alex was pretty sure that could not be done. Anyone knows, anybody that knows something about stripping and waxing, you have to do the entire area. You don't just do one small area. But next thing I knew, Alex was off and he was taping the area and he was going ahead and stripping it down, just that one area, and getting it just perfect so that you could not tell that, anything had been done and that the whole floor just shined perfectly. It was just amazing. And I could say, I told you so. I knew we could do a partway job there and get it done. Let's see, third thing, of course, every so often, it is time to rearrange the admin building or help with some other amazing project the superintendent and I come up with. Those are usually times of dread for any custodian. Their cough turns into the flu once they understand the amount of pain that the idea will involve. Not too long ago, I sent Alex an email for part one of a huge series of moves that were needed in the upcoming several weeks. Alex carefully reviewed what I had sent, and immediately the wheels started turning. How could he make the move even more efficient? He sprang into action. By the time I discussed the email with him and grudgingly told him, I guess I need to catch up with Cliff, that was going to be the first person I'd need to talk to, he said, I wouldn't do that if I were you. I already have been talking to him, and I got him moving out 3 days earlier. Of course, you can do whatever you want. And I decided, yeah, I would just go ahead and go sit down, and he had that handled. Every day, almost without fail, Alex gives me his 2-minute plan of the day. And always asks, do you need anything? That exemplifies his attitude every day. Do you need anything? What is special about Alex is that he really means it. He then prioritizes his day, and he's off and running. I do know one thing. As Mick Willis recently said, we could use an Alex in every building. Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you, everybody. We'd also like to thank Alex's family for coming here to support him. We appreciate having Alex with us every day. I know. I said that.
Missed that.
Next up, we have a district presentation on redefining ready. Ms. Gersnich.
I'd like to thank Alex, too. He and I have had a lot of fun together with some different events that we've experienced together. Not sure, is this on, Karen? Okay.
Do we have PowerPoint or?
I don't. I don't have a PowerPoint because I hear that that's, see? See, I pay attention. Thank you, President Adler, Board, and Dr. Karat for this opportunity to share about this really exciting initiative. The Redefining Ready initiative is a national initiative which recognizes that not every student needs to have a 4-year college degree to have a life-sustaining and supporting career. The initiative itself has 3 categories: college, career, and life. And these categories may or may not overlap. And sometimes they will intermingle with each other. The national initiative starts with the college category in the chart that I gave you. And it has the traditional expectations of meeting the criteria for SAT, taking particular college-focused courses, and also a 4th-year math class. But it also requires students to declare a career interest pathway. The career category has students declare a career interest pathway, same as the other. But it says a student must also pass an entrance exam to, say, an ICC program or take an armed services test if needed. And then they must meet 2 indicators from the following list: 90% attendance, 25 hours of community service, having a workplace learning experience, earn an industry credential, take a dual credit career pathway course, or be part of 2 or more co-curricular activities. So the career category, again, define a career cluster area, pass your entrance exam, and then do 2 of the things I just listed. The Life Ready category indicates students must demonstrate grit and perseverance as well as growth mindset. The national initiative also discusses the need for SEL support for students. And we're already highly focused on that Life Ready category as well as the other two. The first two categories, college and career, have fairly quantifiable ways to keep students on track to their post-secondary experience. The third category is a little harder to capture quantifiably. We actually have some nice things already in place that I think kind of put us ahead with this initiative. We will use these indicators to guide students so they have a clear understanding of expectations. These will also shape some of our approaches to programming and supports going forward. The resolution allows us to commit to supporting students as they focus on this experience and will allow us to transcend this from just being an initiative to something that becomes part of our DNA in the district. So we ask that you support the resolution tonight, and I also want to thank Mr. Wilson. He's been part of our groups that have been looking through these indicators and giving feedback on them.
Great, thank you. Any questions from board members about the summary that Ms. Gerznich just gave or the resolution supporting redefining RIT? Seeing none, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Beg the board's indulgence, we have two other very short presentations that we'd like to slide in here at this point. Dr. Wilson, you had left us a summary on virtual learning. Could you maybe come forward and give us a quick synopsis of the work that you and the team have been doing?
Sure.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity just to share where we're at on our journey with online learning. So I did sneak a front and back page about virtual learning, and I called it supporting student learning because that's really what virtual learning is about, is putting all the pieces together. So we have lots of learning options. Some of them you have seen, and many of them you have approved. And they supplement learning in and out of the classroom that complement teacher instruction. However, what we have found ourselves facing much too often last year and this year is what happens when we do not have certified teachers to instruct in reading, writing, science, and social studies. And so that's where we also look at virtual learning as an opportunity to unite that problem. I wanted to put in front of you, the Illinois State Board of Education completed a research study because they're very focused on the teacher shortage. This study that's just been released about a week ago, so it's fresh, hot off the press, it's called Teach Illinois. And this research study completed, it was a partnership with ISB and the Joyce Foundation to address the teacher shortage. And the report has the key takeaways from a year of study. There was 40 focus group sessions and interviews with over 400 teachers. So really what this report talked about was a supply and demand and 7 recommendations to address the shortage. Many of these recommendations are best practice. They're certainly already engaged in some of the school districts across the country. However, I noticed that we have 2 of them. One is Grow Your Own Project, and we also have a robust mentoring induction program. Even though these recommendations are research-based and they work other places, we're happy to know about them, but they will take years to implement, and our students do not have the time to wait. So I left you a few bullet points about what the research brought out about the teacher shortage. The biggest supply of teachers is our returning educators at 90% return rate, which is fabulous. The second biggest supply comes from teachers new to the profession. And as you can see in the second bullet, that number climbed to 6,000 in 2015-16, but it dropped to about 5,400 in 2016-17. Also, the American Association of Colleges for Teacher Education found a 23% decline in the number of people completing teacher prep programs nationwide, but in Illinois, there was a 53% decline. Between 2008 and 2018, the state saw a 3.4% decrease in the total number of Illinois teachers, and if you look at the bullet underneath that, the student enrollment has also decreased by 2.2%, which is obviously the teacher decrease is a much higher rate. In 2017, there was 1,047 school vacancies, vacant teaching positions in the state of Illinois. The big demands are special education, bilingual education, and then 52% of all others. So the last bullet talks about Advance Illinois. 90% of 2017 teaching vacancies were in districts funded below adequacy. So as you can see, we're setting a stage where we really need to pay attention and think about what should Peoria Public Schools do. The legislators have not been sleeping on this tragedy. They have taken action, and they have already passed legislative and regulatory processes to help districts get teachers in a much quicker fashion, such as short-term substitute teaching license, allowing reciprocity for out-of-state educators. They expanded short-term emergency approval for special education, so on and so forth. So although that they're trying to help, and the Teach Illinois has great research practice, we can't wait. And so if you turn to the second page, we have a sense of urgency in Peoria Public Schools. With all of that information behind us, we must get creative and find solutions to support our students who are experiencing learning with long-term substitutes who are not certified in the content of classes that they are teaching. In early August, Peoria Public School had 52 non-special ed education teacher openings, and now we have 25. Still too many. We've made some progress, but still too many. We are researching ways to support student learning through several online resources. Teachers utilize the resources to complement student learning. In core classes that are staffed with long-term substitutes, we are changing the landscape to provide certified teacher of record so that students can have the same opportunity. So listed are a few online solutions. Currently, we have Edgenuity, which replaced Compass Learning, and that provides two things for our students. One is a credit recovery for high school students who have failed more than one or more courses, and that's to help them keep on track and to graduate. The second thing Edgenuity provides for us is an opportunity for initial credit. We do not use it very often, but it is available to us for students that are seeking options that don't fit in their schedule. So perhaps they might have high-level courses that are at the same time. So this provides an opportunity to help students get the courses that they wish. Another option that we've utilized just this year for the first time is called the Virtual School in Maine. And you might ask, why do we go clear to Maine? Why do we seek Maine? Mr. Welsh had a situation in one of our buildings where a physics teacher that taught BC physics resigned closely to the start of school. We had students that were signed up for that course, and we did not want to leave them out. So we, Mr. Welsh looked at the Illinois Virtual School and Edgenuity, and they did not offer that course. So they were creative, and they found a course called the Virtual School in Maine. And so I believe Mr. Welsh is at 6 out of the 7?
Correct.
Yeah.
They have signed up with the virtual school, yes.
So the counselor spoke to them. Not all students want an online learning opportunity. It's a different way of learning. And so the students had an option to take a different class. So 6 out of the 7 chose this online option. So that's something that we're doing this year. I'm not sure that we'll do it again, but we have it available to us. So in addition to those two pieces, we have been conducting extensive research for online live teacher solutions. A committee consisting of principals and district administration met with 4 online live teacher providers. And you might ask, what is that? Basically, an online live teacher solution provides live instruction during the day through a computer screen with the substitute monitoring the student lab learning. There's 24/7 assistance through tutoring and live chats, and most importantly, that the there are Illinois certified teachers teaching this course in the content area that the students are taking the course. So this is something that, like I said, we are researching, and we're in the middle of this research, but we wanted just to make you available that we are doing everything that we can think of to support our students and ensure that instruction in the classroom is with certified teachers in the content area that they are teaching. So where might we try this pilot implementation? We do have some buildings that have some key content areas, not that all aren't important, but math is one of the key content areas. We have an 8th grade math position, we have a 6th grade math position, we have a 7th and 8th grade math position, and a grade 8 math position in 4 different buildings. And those positions are currently being taught by certified substitutes, but they do not have a math degree. So I just wanted to bring this forward to you and just let you know that we are seeking to find ways to continue to support our students.
At the next board meeting, we'll actually present a proposal to you. So we'll have enough time if you have questions, either right now around the horseshoe or by the next time, we'll have all of your questions answered. Can you share the committee comprised of?
Yes, okay, so team, help me. We have Dr. Ike, the 3 executive directors, which is Mr. Welsh, Dr. Bell, and Dr. Wood, Susan Gersnich. We have principals, we have the high school principals, and we have some middle school principals. Help me out. Who else am I missing? Maureen, thank you. And Susan Goldbein was not on that committee, but I think we'll bring her forward. Anyone else? Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions of Dr. Wilson?
Actually, this question might be more accurately directed to Dr. Ikajaku, and that is how are these things dovetailing with our search for teachers? For example, now that you have a virtual physics teacher, does that take the heat off finding a real physics teacher, or how? But that's what I'm asking.
No, we can still continue to look aggressively.
Yeah.
The staff with live Peoria teachers instead of virtual. So we'd rather use live instruction than virtual. So that effort still continues aggressively. As you read, I believe it was you have a job there on the 27th. Still looking to get the full back.
Yeah, I just saw it. Somebody read it in Spanish, too. By God, we found a Spanish teacher. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for asking good questions.
Okay. Mr. Walter.
I'm sure you probably looked at is it possible for us to have maybe a Peoria teacher, but have them be the online teacher into 1 or 2 other schools? Is it possible for us to, what I'm saying is, for example, if we had a physics teacher that was at Richwoods, if we didn't have one that was at Manual or Peoria High, that would be internal. And I realize we may have to have some agreements with our friends with the union, but is that a possibility that we've looked into? Do we have the capability of doing that?
I
can take that one. I mean, right now, for example, all of those classes, the teachers, they have full loads.
Yeah.
So unless if you're looking at a weekend, a Saturday or Sunday, I mean, we have finite time.
Right.
What we looked at, though, was, Mr. Welch, remember we brainstormed, and maybe Susan, the possibility of piping, like maybe they could be at their locale and sort of virtually be exposed to, let's say, a teacher at Richwoods, and there could be a sub there, but they could be exposed to the instruction and the lessons.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's where you were heading,
Yeah,
and we've had
smart.
conversations with that. And Susan, are you? I can't see you.
I recall that
Yeah.
we actually got a quote, and it was a very steep quote to have that pipe through. Not that we would, not still considering that option, because I think it's a good option, but to pipe from one location to another is quite expensive.
Okay.
But it's a good, we'll continue to explore the possibility. I actually like it, and at some point we may have to really seriously think of how we can get that done. We had looked at cameras, remember, like 3 years ago?
And they were, I wish Michelle was here, she has the actual number way out there in terms of making sure that you had the richness of the video and the teacher and student microphones would have to be set up around the room to be heard well, and so there were a lot of challenges with it.
Okay.
But I think there's potential there down the road,
Okay.
for sure. Thank you.
The one person I left off of the committee is probably the most key position is Michelle Seipel, our technology director. So she was front and center, so I apologize. I left her off, but key ingredient, key ingredient.
Okay.
Thank you.
And last but not least, because we do have an action item on our consent agenda about creation of Knoxville South, Mr. Welsh, give us a little overview of what we're about to talk about.
Good evening. In your packet tonight, there's an agreement between Peoria Public Schools and the Peoria Park District for us to access their facility. Logan Park has a facility on the south side. For the past 8 years, Knoxville Center for Student Success has grown and has been successful and more successful each year. They've gone from their first year of 26 graduates to last year 94 graduates. That actually represents an increase of 38% from the previous year. So we still want to capture a segment of our student body that has a tremendous challenge getting to Knoxville. And on the south side of Peoria, there is a facility in the shadow of Garfield Primary that we feel will help meet that niche. And again, it's Logan Park. The facility, we believe, can accommodate up to 40, 45 students at any one point in time. There's a small computer lab that we feel can serve at least 10 students. In a larger room, more of a traditional room, Mr. Thomas has devised a schedule for 3 part-time teachers. Mr. Thomas would continue to serve as the principal in that locale as well. The agreement between the Peoria Park Districts and ourselves, they are requesting essentially that we continue to serve as a conduit between the community and the many services they offer. We've done that for many, many years, but this formalizes that agreement. So are there any questions I can answer regarding the agreement or the proposal?
Dr. Bob?
Thanks, Mr. Welsh. That was impressive. So what were the numbers at the very beginning that you said in terms of graduation?
In 2011-12, when the school opened, there were 26 graduates. Last year, 94.
I invite my colleagues around the horseshoe to give kudos to Mr. Eric Thomas and the hard work that he's doing over there. That is a remarkable achievement.
Yes, it is. Mr. Thomas is with us tonight, actually, I believe. Eric, if you want to stand, please.
I put him on notice, and he's
way in
like,
the corner.
Dr. Karat, please don't. I would rather just be here in support. So thanks for coming out, Mr. Thomas. Appreciate you.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question.
Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, so the capacity said about 40 to 45 students. What's do we have a projected number of students that will be attending?
I believe once we open the school, there will be students that are currently at Knoxville that will choose to go there because it's in their neighborhood, and they will not be required to get on a city bus or provide their own transportation. So right off the bat, I would project anywhere from 20 to 25 students.
Okay. Okay.
And this is just a pilot to see how it goes. It's a one-year pilot. The nice thing is we're not transmitting any finances. We're just sort of bartering services with Park District. So that's
right.
That's encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great example of collaboration and coordination between two bodies.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was Mr. Adler able to get golf passes for people with the Park District?
You know, I think we could work that out somehow, some way, Mr. Adler.
Just a question.
That was shameless.
Emily will want something big for that.
Oh, let's don't go there, yeah.
For the record, I never asked for any golf
Fake news.
passes. All right, thank you, Mr. Welsh.
Thank you.
All right. So that brings us to our audience presentations. As a public body making decisions that impact over 13,000 students and tens of thousands of voters and taxpayers, feedback from you, the public, is critical to our success. There are rules posted for addressing our board. They can be found near our public comment box or our website, www.peoriapublicschools.org. We welcome both your praise and your constructive criticism. We simply request that you maintain a civil tone to your comments and respect our other speakers by limiting your time to the allotted 5 minutes. Outside of these meetings, board members can be contacted using our district emails, or if you find a friend, phone number. If you have a specific request here tonight, go ahead and indicate that in your comments, and we'll have a staff member follow up and see what we can do after the meeting. First speaker on the list is Ms. Sandy Jungarius.
I'm speaking tonight regarding the recent decision by the district to collapse classrooms. A recent article in the Journal Star described the district collapsing classrooms as, there's an English class with 10 students and another English class with 10 students, and the two classes are simply combined into one classroom. Perhaps this is what happens at the high school level, but not at a primary school. I'm involved with a school that recently collapsed 2 classes, one of them a kindergarten. At a time when data has shown that 58% of our district's kindergartners are not socially, emotionally, or academically prepared for kindergarten, there are now 20 to 21 students in a class that previously had 16. 5 to 6 extra 5-year-olds in a classroom may not seem like an issue, but I challenge you to substitute teach or even observe one of these classrooms for at least a week, and perhaps your view would change. Collapsing classrooms affects not only those students being displaced, a new room, a new teacher, different expectations, but also every student now has 5 to 7 extra students needing that teacher's attention. In the upper primary grades, class lists are developed before the beginning of school to maximize success and limit problems. Often, students who had issues with one another are put into separate classrooms in order to alleviate behavior problems. When a classroom is collapsed, those efforts to ensure success are thwarted. At the primary level, this is not for a 1-hour period that these children are together, as in a high school class, but all day. The process involving collapsing these classrooms seems at odds with the district's commitment to social and emotional well-being. The staff was informed after school hours on the Thursday before Labor Day that the school would lose 2 classes. On Friday after school, there was a meeting where union reps and Dr. Wood met with the staff regarding the moving process. Teachers who needed to move classrooms and/or schools and grade levels would have 1 day to pack their entire classroom. They would have 1 day to unpack that classroom. And on the 3rd day, they would be expected to be ready to teach. This might work at the high school level as well, but if any of you have been in a primary classroom, those primary teachers spend weeks before school getting their classrooms ready. They have bulletin boards, they have markers, they have books, and they're given 1 day to pack that up and the next day to unpack everything. They were given no time for meeting with their new team, the new staff, or to become familiar with the new curriculum. Students were not told of these changes until Tuesday afternoon, the day after Labor Day. Parents of students being assigned a new classroom were informed Tuesday afternoon by phone or email. All of these changes were to take place on Wednesday. Parents and teachers had less than 24 hours to help prepare students for this upheaval. Even though only 2 classrooms were collapsed, 9 classrooms were directly affected by this decision. And really, this decision and the way it was implemented affected the entire staff and student population.
Next up is Ms. Sharon Cruz.
With regard to discipline issues, I realize you are between the proverbial rock and a hard place. I know the problem started in my lifetime because the consequences for bad behavior were not equal for black and white students. There wasn't much equality, period. With the civil rights movement came major efforts to right these wrongs. Of course, I applauded those efforts. Parents, both black and white, began to take public schools to court to right what they considered were wrongs, mostly what they considered to be unfair expulsions. Over the years, more and more court decisions and federal and state laws made it more and more difficult to punish students in the traditional ways. Also, I even realized that these court cases created a greater need for lawyers to give advice and to represent the district in these court cases. Compounding the issue, the 1975 Individuals with Disabilities of Education Act, IDEA, demanded that physically handicapped children be placed in regular classes. That was a very good development, as I remember a very bright student in a wheelchair who was placed in special ed classes because of his physical disability. He ended up being my student teacher. Also, I recall that black children had unfairly been labeled as special ed to keep them out of regular classrooms. This act started to right those wrongs. Over the years, students with behavior problems had been placed in special ed classes. The 1975 Act ended that practice and put those students in regular classrooms. However, they still have the protections from expulsions, etc., offered to special ed students. There are misbehaving students in all grades, in all schools, that have these legal protections from certain consequences. When unsure of how to punish students, superintendents call on lawyers. According to one online source, the lawyer's concern isn't that the child has breached the boundaries of respect or tolerance. As in Peoria, I believe lawyers advise that court cases be avoided at all costs, and the result is the chaos Peoria now has in its schools. Over the years, this district took the path of least resistance until the consequences for bad behavior are almost non-existent. While I certainly understand the forces that make disciplining students difficult, you cannot give up trying new methods even to the point of risking lawsuits. What is worse, the district has simultaneously lowered academic standards. What I believe to be very accurate reports indicate that Manual's 7th and 8th grades have had at least one fight per day so far. Reports from all over the district indicate similar stories. Until you are willing to admit loudly in the community and to all parents that there is a problem, there will be no solutions. The community and parents have to be part of the solution, but if they are not told the stark truth, they have no reason to offer help. However, they do know the truth, but haven't heard any cries for help. Of course, teachers know the truth, and newer teachers with no ties to the community are undoubtedly looking for jobs in districts with fewer problems. The teacher shortage will continue, and a quality education will not be available to our students. I am very disturbed about your unwillingness to seriously consider a return to a mandatory summer school for students who fail high school courses, since you have not offered any proof that credit recovery is a reliable way for students to earn credits for failed courses. The threat of mandatory summer school will also help with discipline. I can attest to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tanya Strong.
Good evening, Superintendent Carrot, President Adler, members of the board, and administration. I come before you tonight for two reasons. First, thank you for continuing to allow the Insurance Committee to be an effective part of our CBA. Our committee continues to meet to make great strides, whereby allowing our employees access to not only cost-effective insurance premiums, but affordable benefits as well. Secondly, I wanted to speak to you about the class size committee in which I am a member. This committee was requested to meet before the school year began and obliged, continuing to meet on the first day of school and 3 subsequent meetings, as well as a long special ed meeting. This committee needed 26 FTE reductions for a cost savings to the district of $1.3 million. In addition, the district still has 38 substitutes that we are currently paying $1.4 million. If we had teachers in those positions with benefits, we'd be at 1.9. So 38 openings is saving the district $0.5 million, a net gain to the district of $1.8 million. In addition, you reduced the PLCs at the high schools, so high school teachers now only have 1 PLC 1 day a week. My concerns: 19 classes change tomorrow at Peoria High School, resulting in 19 teachers with a new teaching assignment, resulting in new teachers for approximately 475 students. While I will recognize that will put certified teachers in front of all of our students at Peoria High, where we have had 3 full-time substitutes. In addition, current class sizes at or above the suggested limits of 28 at the high school. Manual High School has 1 at 28, 1 at 29. Peoria High has 13 that are at 28 and 2 at 29. Richwoods High School has 58 classes at 28, and we have 10 classes at 29. We also have 7 teachers with a 7th teaching assignment, meaning they get to use the bathroom between 5 minutes passings and get a 30-minute duty-free lunch a day. That's it. These numbers will continue to rise as students enroll. That said, the administration said they would entertain an MOU with the possibility of a financial amount for those over the suggested contractual limits. The union offered, with a sunset, if they were 1 to 3 over. We suggested 4 snapshots per year. Middle school and high school, we suggested a $250 increment per class, resulting in $1,000 per year for being 3 students over the limit. At the primary, we suggested $350 4 times a year. We were denied. They wanted us to have 180 students, 30 in each class, and a caseload of 180. We let teachers go at the high school level when we reduced our PLCs because they were forced into middle school positions. That's not why they went to school, because they did have a 612 certificate, and they left our district. We lost good teachers. As we continue to move forward, the teachers need to be valued for their education, experience, and time. Overcrowding our classrooms is not the answer, in my opinion. Please reconsider our offer and show our teachers that they are valued for their overcrowded classrooms. I wanted to add one more thing in terms of the movement that Mrs. John-Gary has brought up. The union begged and pleaded during bargaining. They spent 2 days on this. We wanted 3 days for our teachers, as it's been in the past, with no abuse. If a teacher got done sooner, then of course they would start teaching earlier. The administration denied that and said no more than 2 was necessary. I just wanted you to get the full picture as we continue to work on these committees, and I try my best on every committee I'm in to put my heart into it, and it really breaks my heart sometimes that I feel like some things fall on deaf ears. But when I can look at millions of dollars saved, and at these schools We only had how many that were at or above limits? 13, and you don't even want to talk to us. It's hard for me because I'm the one, and Jeff and our union reps, that hear from our teachers that are frustrated. So I just wanted you to get the entire picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Terry Knapp.
I'd like to thank all the board members who mentioned Alicia Butler and the kind words you had for her. She was a great lady, and the district really benefited from having her in our community. I don't know, I listened to the couple of reports on the teacher virtual school or whatever. Did I hear that there were no teachers on the committee, just administrators? I mean, I didn't catch that. Anybody remember teachers on the committee? Were there?
Not at this time.
I didn't hear them mentioned, but that's okay. Park District, something about the Park District, communication with the Park District. We still need to have Central Park pool. I mean, our students at Central are really getting cheated by not having high school PE when swimming. I mean, Manual gets it, I believe. Richwoods gets it, I believe. Central does not get it. Largest high school in the city, it does not prepare kids in swimming. That's almost criminal in today's society when we are around water so much. Labor Day Parade. I want to say that I thought the Labor Day Parade showed promise. Richwoods was in the Labor Day Parade for the first time ever, as I recall. You know, the union pays for those bands to be in. It's only $150, but it's still $150. I was glad to see Richwoods in. Central was in. And Central, being the fine arts high school, the largest student body in the community, still only has about 29 or 30 band members, at least the ones that I see show up. They still don't march at football games. They still don't do much of anything. They're the fine arts high school. Those kids, I think, are being cheated. Manual had, I think, 8 drums and 10 instruments in the parade. I mean, I was proud of those kids. They were proud to be there. The Richwoods kids, you know, were really, you know, they had about 60. They used to have 120. But, I mean, it's coming back. Lathan basically destroyed the fine arts program in Peoria 10 years ago. I mean, but it's coming back, and you're all to be congratulated. I see positive steps all the way around. I see the kids really like being involved in band. I went to the Quest fiasco down at the courthouse. I lost 2 cases. 2 cases at the courthouse, 2 out of 2. I think there's going to be more coming. My question to you is Quest one of your schools, or is it a school unto itself? Because it's an accident waiting to happen. I believe, you know, someday, and I think the attorneys will just lick their chops on this because they'll say, I want to defend this. But Quest is a Peoria school in my mind. That doesn't mean it is, but I think you're going to see 2 or 3 more lawsuits come out of the Quest deal before this is over with. And, you know, the lawyers are not prepared when they get there. The witnesses that they had, the bookkeeper or whatever she was that testified, I was there. She on about 80% of the questions said, I don't know. When asked by the 2 attorneys, I don't know. It was sad. I mean, you know, I can't believe that attorneys don't go prepared to court. If you've never been prepared by an attorney for a deposition, you know, you're missing a rare treat, believe me, because the other side's attorneys don't mess around. And if you're not prepared, you've got issues. And I think it's very important that you understand, and board members should go to those court hearings. There were no board members there. There were no administrators there. I was there. I love to go to those things. I love to go to Ottawa and see your attorneys perform because I don't think they do very well either. You know, and it's just sad when you see attorneys get beat, lose $350,000 cases in court, and tell you how they're going to win them. They told me they were going to win them. I know they told you they were going to win them, and they paid out $350,000 to a special ed teacher. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy and Elizabeth.
Good evening. Thank you for letting us come before you tonight to speak. Both my wife and I, we are parents of a kindergartner and a second grader at Keller Primary School. And we kind of want to speak a little bit more on Ms. John Garris's amazing presentation to you as well. So last week, I was at work. I get a text from my wife that says my son's teacher is no longer going to be his teacher. I'm like, okay, did she quit? No. The administration decided that as school is going forward and has already started, her position wasn't needed because enrollment numbers were down. So my question to my wife was, did they know about this before school started? She told me that she asked Mr. Turner, the principal at Keller, that they were aware as of last spring that numbers were down. So I thought, okay, this is kind of frustrating. Why do you start school knowing enrollment numbers are already low, and yet still you decide, okay, we're going to let our teachers be gone? Well, last week they posted, we're hiring teachers. So we heard here both in English and Spanish that the city or the school district's looking for teachers. I'm a very financially minded individual, so I understand from enrollment numbers, budget, all that, totally understand. My concern, my question to you, why after school has already started did this happen? A few days that Mrs. John Garris was saying, the teacher has to change basically what they've been preparing all summer in just a matter of a couple days. This should have been avoided. So my question to you is, what future plans or policies need to be in place, or maybe were overlooked, to prevent something like this from happening again? Because my son last week was crying almost every day that his teacher was gone. It was very disappointing to see that. How do you tell an 7-year-old, almost 8-year-old, you know, sorry, I have no idea what to do about this? It's very frustrating as a parent, as a taxpayer, to see something like this happen. So just know that there's a lot of disappointment in Keller, both from parents, from teachers, from everything in the community, that we really wish that this was avoided. So I don't know if my wife wants to say anything, but thank you for your time.
Add that I was at school last week, 2 days in the morning. I was in charge of the Donuts with Dad, and just the environment in the school was so sad. Teachers disheveled, custodian trying to help with the Donuts with Dad, trying to move classrooms, trying to get this teacher's stuff to that one and pack up this stuff. I was in the office after Donuts with Dad, and I heard a student hugging a teacher. I'm so nervous that you're going to be let go next, Mrs. Jones. I mean, the kids are wondering, is my teacher going to be here tomorrow? Is my teacher going to be told, we can't have you here anymore, we can't afford you? The kids cannot learn when they're hurting in their heart that they're afraid that their teacher is not going to be there. Those teachers mean everything to those kids. My son adores his teacher that he has had every year. We have great teachers at that school, and it just hurts my heart to see those teachers being thrown into this chaos. One day, like Mrs. John Garris said, to pack up and unpack, go from kindergarten teaching. My son now has a former kindergarten teacher teaching second grade. He came home with a newsletter. It was the same newsletter that my kindergartner came home with. She didn't have any time to make an age-appropriate newsletter for the next week ahead. It is just not acceptable what you've done to the teachers, the students, and they're still concerned that this is going to happen again. And I just beg you to not let this happen again to these kids. Please change the way that it comes across, the way it is addressed to the child. I mean, my son is like, why did this happen? I can't explain it to him. I mean, all I can tell him is it's because, buddy, they need the money for somewhere else, and so you're going to have to suffer. And one more thing with the kindergarten classrooms, now that they have grown to 2021, they're almost at that max level. What's going to happen if a couple families move into Keller and they have they're above that level. Is my child going to get a different teacher at some point this year yet? I mean, that's a real fear in these kids' lives. And one of the teachers I spoke to, she has a child with pacemaker, 2 kids in pull-ups, and 1 kid with leukemia, and now she got more kids added to her class. Thank you.
Next up is Mary Beth Cunningham.
I came to talk about the Illinois Accelerated Placement Act, except for Mrs. Jongerius and the parents over there, and other people are talking about what has happened at Keller. And one of the things that I think that you guys need to really look into is not only, what other policies can happen, but if you would have told me 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that Keller's enrollment would go down so much so that they only needed 1 of the 2 buildings, and even beyond that, that they're so low that they have to collapse classrooms, I would have laughed at you. I would have thought that is the healthiest school in our district, and it was. And I would have said, absolutely not. What would someone actually have to do to keep that school open other than let them exist? About 10 years ago, I came in and talked about some of the problems that were happening at schools like Keller, and it wasn't Keller problem, it was district problem. There was a lot of angst around those times, and hopefully we revisit that. Why is enrollment down? Why don't parents want to send their kids when they pay, in that part of the district, when they pay that many taxes to send them? We've got to really think about why the enrollment is down, and I think one of the reasons is because we're not known for taking interest in what our teachers have to say. I'm glad that Mr. Knapp brought up the fact that there's no teachers on the committee about teaching. Makes absolutely no sense, and I think it doesn't take a whole lot to figure that out. I send my kids to the district because of our teachers. I don't send them because I have to. I love the teachers in District 150. I'm a product of a teacher in District 150. My dad was a teacher in District 150. I'm not brave enough to be a teacher, so I'm a counselor. So our teachers are the best teachers there are, and so to not include them, especially the long-standing teachers like Mrs. Strong, the ones that sit behind me that are retired. We have the best ideas coming around from teachers, and yet teachers are denied their solution-focused goals. So I'd revisit that if I were you guys. Illinois Acceleration Act was that's what I came to talk about, is to help to accelerate kids who not only are in the gifted range, because that's used to be what it was, but actually score enough above the grade level that maybe they're not able to profit in the regular classroom setting. It was put into law in August of 2017. You saw me here talking about a kid of my own that would benefit from that kind of act, and as of July 1st, it was supposed to be a part of our policy, and we don't have it. We need to have a policy. It's the law right now, and unless we have a policy that I'm missing, we need to be in compliance with that. Not only just to have a policy so that the teachers in schools that have collapsing elements going on there can kind of figure out how the heck they're going to make it work when they're already over capacity with their kids compared to what they expected to be. Please, please, please talk to your teachers. Please talk to your parents. Please listen to them. Please, we don't need, and no offense to administrators, because my dad was also administrators, we don't need 15 administrators talking about how to do a teacher's job. We need the teachers talking about that. We want the parents part of that. These are our kids and our kids' teachers. And to not give an opportunity for children to say goodbye to their teachers, that is shameful. Someone knew that that was going to be happening. And we talk about socio-emotional learning. That's absolutely, absolutely unacceptable.
All right. Any responses to audience presentations? Dr. Krett?
Thank you, President Adler. First, I would like to say there are really actually no problems with Keller. What's happened this year with Keller has happened to many, many schools throughout Peoria Public Schools year in and year out. So it just happened this year that You know, unlike last year when they had 407 kids, this year they have 357 kids. If you talk to the principal, he will tell you this family left and this family left, and he knew exactly. People are living in Illinois. Illinois has the largest out-migration when compared to many states. So that's one of the biggest things. And for us, we have, you know, the class size committee. So I've heard like an overarching theme around the class size committee and the process. And I know it's, you know, it's hard when there are changes. I used to have to deal with it not only here in Peoria, but in another district. It was my job, and we tried to make sure parents were involved and talking to the kids and helping the kids transition. But this is pretty normal. And again, Keller has been pretty fortunate that their population have been very stable over the years. But what happens, like in the spring, those enrollment numbers are projected, and then when school starts, then you sort of look at like proposed versus actual, and that's where, you know, the numbers really, decisions are made based on numbers. And so it showed that Keller needed to, they could not support, they needed to lose 2 teachers because they did not have enough kids, because they had lost quite a bit of kids due to families actually leaving either Illinois or leaving Peoria. So thus the class size committee, and we were really fortunate this year, the class size committee started much earlier than we have done in the past, and so we're really proud of that. I know it's frustrating parents, but our kids are really resilient, and we have to, you know, we have to make those adjustments because of the teacher shortage. And so, you know, as I said, the past practice has always been using projected numbers in the spring, and then moving forward from the estimates to the actual based on actually what we call butts in the seats. So for us, it's about meeting the needs of kids, and it's about efficiency and using the class size committee. That's why we have the class size committee, which it's a combination of union representation and administrators working together collectively. So it's not just administration. I mean, Ms. Strong and Scott Schieflin and the president of the union, working with Dr. Wilson and Dr. Ike and Dr. Bell and Mr. Welch collaboratively, and they're looking at numbers. I mean, all of the decisions are based on data and based on numbers. So yeah, that's how the business operates. It's really hard to determine, you know, the Richwoods, for example, was totally out of whack, right? I mean, I have Richwoods numbers. They saw an increase in 62 ninth graders, an increase in 50 sophomores. They lost 9 seniors. So it varies from year to year, just based on everything that's happening in the state and the city. And so we're a byproduct of that, and we have to adjust, you know, we have to adjust our numbers and our staff and really, really make it work. So the good thing about Keller is that they have an amazing principal. Mr. Turner has been there for over 12 years, if not longer. So I know he will work with the parents and staff and get everybody aligned and adjusted. You know, Tony mentioned the PLCs and all of the other work that Mr. Welch at the high school did, and we were able to, you know, she talked about, for example, being able to collapse classes, and I heard also there was a conversation around some talk around, you know, reimbursing teachers, and, you know, what basically where I stand with that is at the high school level, we're paying, we have goals
aspirational goals, classroom goals. So like for kindergarten, for example, the range is through 21 or less than 22. And high school, for example, it's up to 28. And so we said, okay, you know, there is a proposal around paying teachers extra for, you know, classes. Let's see if there are 31 kids. And so we're like, okay, there you may have a kid, and we have no classes with 31. The most that I've seen, and I have the information, are classes with 29 kids. And so we're like, okay, you have 29 kids in that class, but you might have 21 kids in this class or 25 kids in this class. So if you take 28, which is what teachers are being paid for in terms of the max, times 6 periods, that's 168. So we can have a conversation of if anyone exceeds 168 students, we provided a proposal to the union around that idea because, I mean, if you have a class with 30 kids and then maybe a couple of classes with 25 kids, and so you get $1,000 because you have two excess kids, but Ms. Ross has a class, let's say, with 28 kids, and so she has 168 kids. You might have 150 kids, but just because that one class. So when you look at it from a visionary standpoint and an equity standpoint, we have to look at the complete proposal. Because if I were her, I would be like, okay, you know, because he just has 1 or 2 kids over, he's getting an additional stipend. But I have more kids than, so it just gets really complicated and murky. So we're like, okay, let's look at the class load. I think it's a fair proposal, a fair conversation, and anything, you know, we talked about if there's an excess of 10, we could look at the proposal, and so that's what we submitted. But I hope that answers that question. The school districts go through that all the time in terms of making adjustments. It's kind of like a business also. If you're selling this product here and nobody wants to buy it, you shuffle it and so we, you know, I know Keller has not really experienced that because of the stability in the area, but for us it's pretty normal. We have talked about working closer with research to sometimes we can monitor the numbers and try to make sure that it's as accurate as possible. But as you know, the finance individuals will tell you, it's at some point it's usually a sophisticated guess, right? And so, yeah, so that's the story. And you know, with even the union coming up and bringing this to the public, I'm sort of disappointed because we meet with them. I meet with the union, and actually no other superintendent probably does this, but every other week we meet together and we talk about opportunities for improvement, and we bring items to the table, and we kind of talk and we collaborate and we compromise in a collegial, amicable way. And then there's also another opportunity where we have a strategic forum where the board president and the board vice president will meet with the union and will meet with administration, and we will continue to talk about issues. So yeah, I'm just disheartened. I don't know if we really need to meet because it seems like there's a pattern of just, you know, not necessarily following the communication protocol.
Thank you, Dr. Grant. Mrs. Ross.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the issue of actually right-sizing. I call it right-sizing, call it collapsing, whatever. For the last number of years I've been on the board, every single year we've done the same thing. I was a little surprised that people didn't know about that, but we've done the same thing. Some school districts don't even start their classes until after Labor Day because you have so many kids that, you know, you thought you were counting before Labor Day that, you know, don't show up until after. So you have to right size. And we've done this at least 17 years that I've been here, every single year. My grandkids go to Roosevelt. I was told last week they right sized their classrooms and moved some teachers around. I don't know whether we lost teachers or just moved teachers around, but I know it's not a new phenomenon. It's similar to our budget, how we, you know, we do our best guess with the budget, and then we have to right size that and send it to the state by the 30th of September. Am I correct about that? So we don't really know the numbers until the numbers really come in. So I don't think it's personal towards anybody. I think it's just a way of keeping everything afloat and making sure that, you know, our kids have the service that they need. If there's a classroom, I've known Dr. Karatu, if there's a classroom that needs an extra person, you know, we've put assistants in those classrooms, and I don't see personally that it should be taken personally, although it's personal to each person. But it is what we do every year that I've been here. So I'm not sure. Until it happens to us, we probably haven't paid attention to it.
Right. Mr. Walter.
Had a couple of questions. The parents ask, I think, a valid question. Are we done with the collapsing? I mean, is there a chance of that happening? I think that was a fair question that they asked. Is that going to happen again, or are we, at this point, we're balanced?
For this year.
For this year? Okay. I just wanted to assure them because it was a question they had asked. The other thing was, Cunningham brought up the Illinois Acceleration Act. Do we have anybody that's been in contact with that? If that's a statute, the reason I'm on the committee with Mr. Shaw, and if we're supposed to promulgate some rules, I'd just like to know if we've already done that. Is that there? What should we be doing with that?
We've had this as a practice, but we've not done a policy that I'm aware of yet.
Okay.
So perhaps that'd be a good item for the policy committee to take up and research and see what our options are. Dr. Bob.
I'm usually the numbers guy. I'm like hearing data and I like seeing what we're doing, but I would encourage us all not to miss the other message that I'm hearing from our parents and our teachers. These are very bright people. I think they get the data, but I'd like to emphasize something that I believe I heard. We don't know ahead of time. It's hard to predict. It's murky, but it happens every year. Those two things just don't go together as cleanly as we think they should. If it happens every year, then we can anticipate it happening every year. Now, what we might not be able to do is we might not be able to change what we need to do in terms of staffing classrooms equitably to maximize our resources, maximize our teachers, make sure the kids get what they need. The other part but attending that, if we know it's going to happen every year, I remember what it's like to be the parent of a kindergartner who cries, and I wish and hope that you remember too. And that there's a human aspect to the people who came up here and talked, and that's being ignored. And if you know that this is going to happen, and if you know that kids just normally are going to be affected by it, then maybe we should tap Mr. Booth, maybe we should tap the school counselor and say, we don't know what it's going to happen, but we know something's going to happen. And then you have people in place so that when you have a child who is either fearful because they think a teacher might leave, or you have a child who comes home in tears, that we have the emotional support that we need. We may not be able to change the data. I get that. And frankly, I'm sorry if I'm talking for you, but I think they get it too. But I'm not hearing anybody talk to a parent looks at a small child who is crying, and it's your child, and yet it's personal. It's pretty darn personal, because I remember those years. And I hope we pay attention to that, too.
Mr. Adler.
Mr. Walter.
Just one other comment. It seems, excuse me, don't mean to throw that at the attorney. I heard Mrs. Ross say that for 17 years we've been doing this, but I think one of the things that's been happening since the neon years ago that I was in the school district, we never started school till after Labor Day. And it seems now that we've started it earlier and earlier, one of the consequences of that has been that we don't get accurate numbers till Labor Day. State of Michigan statutorily requires that you can't start school before then. I was in the state of Washington, and most of their schools don't start till after Labor Day. And I'm not so sure, maybe we shouldn't take a look at that starting date, and it may help resolve some of these issues. I'm just throwing that out there, but it's been a thing I've heard from other parents too. We started the middle of August this year. That's also been a problem because I've gotten some text messages and requests from teachers to come to their building because they had a room that was over 100 degrees. And that's a consequence of having this. You're on the 3rd floor of Roosevelt and you've got to close doors because you've got something. Is it our fault that they're not air conditioned? No, but if we're starting at August 15th, we got something to pay for that because we're doing that. And I've got other schools that have been over 90 degrees because we don't have air conditioning. Fortunately, we're going to resolve that issue, but I think it's just a concern that we have a lot of kids. I'm not convinced that you can have teaching and learning when you've got a classroom that's over 90 degrees. I don't care how good the teachers are or how good the students are. I just don't think it can happen. And so we can't control the weather, but we can control the effective starting date of school. Obviously, we can't do that this year. But I think those are some of the issues. I agree with Mrs. Ross. We have done this for a long time, but I think we've incrementally, not just us, other schools in the state too. We're not the only ones. I mean, we're at the starting date where I think a lot of schools are at. But sometimes being the leader, maybe going backwards isn't going backwards, at looking at Labor Day as a starting date. Anyway.
You do remember I said that, right? The Labor Day. Most people don't start until after.
Absolutely.
Ms. Jackson.
And I'm going to have to agree with Mr. Walter. Can you please?
Can we put that on the record?
Yeah, let's get that recorded.
As everyone was talking, it just came to me that I know when I was in grade school, and that's been a couple years ago, we started after September, Labor Day. And as I listened, I don't think the only way we can get a handle on this is to know exact numbers or close to exact numbers. And I don't think we're going to get it with kids starting before September, before Labor Day. Maybe we need to really look at this in a way that's different, in that we're saying if we got to turn the numbers in after a certain time, if we not sure where teachers are going to be or kids are going to be, the middle of August, and I think middle of August, I've always thought middle of August is not a time to start school, but I think it should have been later. We need to look at starting after Labor Day and get a better handle on numbers, because sometimes kids don't, even our kids that are in school don't start school 15th because they're still on vacation or doing some other things. But I think the 15th is not a good day for us to really decide what we need to do as we adjust classrooms. And I believe you're always going to have to adjust classrooms because the numbers are going to change from one week to the other in that period. I believe in that period of time. That's a very stable area. However, that's the area that I live in, and I'm not seeing kids in my neighborhood anymore. The numbers in my neighborhood have gone down. The ages of us that's been there for a long time have gone up, so you're not going to get kids. So there's a lot of things that are going to come into play. Keller and Lindbergh has always been a very, very stable area. And if we don't get a handle on how many kids we are going to be dealing with and what we have to do with teachers, because teachers are antsy about whether or not they're going to have a classroom, whether they're going to be moved to someplace else. So I think we ought to really consider looking at the start of school. We can't do anything about it right now, but I think it will assist us in a better way to get a handle. Because if I were 5 years old and I come to school and there's a teacher in my class, and all of a sudden I come back and I got somebody else and I've gotten used to it, it has an effect on how that child reacts. So I think we ought to take a harder look at this whole thing of when we have to turn in numbers, how we deal with putting that together, number one, but make sure that when we make those kind of changes, we have a better idea of the numbers and what happens to our teachers and where they'll be. I just think we ought to really take a hard look at that.
A better solution would be year-round school, especially now that we can get our air conditioning.
I'm not saying that.
All right.
You didn't say.
Dr. Crott.
Yeah, I wanted to also thank Ms. Cunningham for mentioning the Accelerated Placement Act. I just looked at it, and we're actually doing all of those things, so it's just a matter of updating what we have. I mean, as a principal, I skipped kids if they were ready. It talks about AP, IB, dual enrollment, and we're doing some amazing things. I've always said, staff knows, if they're in kindergarten and they're ready for ICC or college, we'll guide them and we'll work with them and we'll get them on. So we're doing it. It's just a matter of updating the policy. We'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Crott. I'm going to agree with a lot of my colleagues, but especially I'd like to appreciate Dr. Davison-Aviles. I think sometimes in the business that we're in, it can be somewhat easy to miss the humanity, especially of the little ones in the business. And I think I'll claim ignorance that since I've been lucky enough in our past experience at Keller, we hadn't experienced the class consolidation, and so it was not terribly directly personal for me in the past. However, it is something we should anticipate, seeing as we do have this situation happen every year. So whatever we have to consider are basic assumptions about teachers, other staff, principals, students being ready for a transition early on in the school year. You know, we should question some of those fundamental assumptions we have and make sure that we're not overly inducing an traumatic impact on a student who their only fault is they've been at school for 3 weeks and we had to make changes. The start of school, I think, is an interesting idea we should talk more about. Also, I would throw in my own 2 cents that I wonder if we get a good post-spring indicator of where our numbers are going. If there's not a better way, even though it's not when we typically talk about teacher placement in the spring, but as we're, you know, guiding ourselves into the summer, as we get a harder feel for where our families are at and who's going to show up in, whether it's August or September, if there's not a better touch point to reassess that forecast.
Great wondering, and we've talked about it, and we're going to be monitoring it for this upcoming year.
Okay, great.
So we'll keep you updated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That's it for audience presentations. Next item, and if that's all you're here for, you're more than welcome to leave. Next item on our agenda is the information items. First up is the proposed expenditures over $2,500. Any questions for Mr. Willis? If anybody else was wondering, like me, the $175,000 bogey on the list was 1 year copier and maintenance renewal. All right, seeing no questions, report of requests under the Freedom of Information Act and status of such requests.
Thank you, President Adler. Since our last board meeting on August 27th, we've received 3 requests. There was also one pending, noted on August 27th, and that request was filled. So to date, we have received 37 requests for this calendar year at a cost of $350. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw, will you share the consent agenda with us this evening?
Okay, Mr. Adler, the items on the consent agenda are item number 1, gifts to the school district, $19,851 this meeting, year-to-date $23,121. Item number 2, payment of bills. Item number 3, payment for travel. Item number 4, human resources report. Item number 5, adoption of resolution of redefining ready. Item number 6, rental agreement with the Pleasure Driveway and School District of and Park District of Peoria for the use of Logan Center as an alternative education satellite facility. Item number 7, salaries and regulations for auxiliary personnel fiscal year 2018-2019. Item number 8, approval of settlement agreement. Item number 9, resolution providing for the issue of $21,505,000 in taxable, $21,505,000 taxable general obligation refunding school bonds, Series 2018A, and $3,235,000 general obligation refunding school bonds, Series 2018B, for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding bonds of the district. And item number 10, appointment to the Public Building Commission of Peoria. And that is the entirety of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Are there any items that board members would like pulled for a separate vote? Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the entirety of the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on any of the items? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Wilson. Aye. Dr. Davidson-Aguilas.
Aye.
Mrs. Ross.
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson.
Aye.
Mr. Walter.
Aye.
Mr. Shaw.
Aye.
Mr. Adler.
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Deliberation agenda. Who's reading tonight? All right, Dr. Bob.
I move that the, beg your pardon, that the revocation of expulsion to be held in abeyance listed on the report dated September 10th, 2018 be approved as presented.
Second.
Item has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that item? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Dr. Davidson-Aguilas.
Aye.
Mrs. Ross.
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson.
Aye.
Mr. Walter.
Aye.
Mr. Shaw.
Aye.
Mr. Adler.
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is the presentation and suggestions by board members. Anyone? All right. Reports from board committees?
We don't meet until.
We have not, Policy Committee has not met since last board meeting, but our next Policy Committee is Thursday, September 20th at 3:30 p.m.
And we have not met since the last board meeting, but we've got a meeting scheduled for
Thursday, September 20th.
September
at
20th.
9 a.m.
Okay.
We have not met since the last board meeting, but we have a meeting scheduled for October the 4th at 4 p.m. And that is the Parent Teacher Advisory Committee. Mr. Wilson and I, in between now and then, will be really visiting and listening to PTO groups, visiting schools and kind of talking about what, what the parent needs are in those schools. So.
Okay, great. If there's nothing else for the goodness of the board, we are adjourned.
I am sorry, I did accidentally throw it.
Oh, no, you're fine. Oh, wow.